Hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of the Podcast Boys. I am one of your hosts, Connor Nielsen, and joining me, as always, is the Comics Kid 2099. How are you doing, Comics Kid?
I'm doing just jolly. Since this is our Christmas episode, you could say that I am feeling wholesome today. Today, I knew I wouldn't be able to make it through that without breaking. I'm doing good, Connor. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. This is actually a very special episode, kind of, because you've made it known that it is your Christmas tradition that every year you watch Escape from New York. And this year, I feel blessed to be in on that tradition because that is the subject of review that we are talking about today. This is John Carpenter's 1981 action science fiction film. And why don't you tell us a little bit about Escape from New York?
All right. So we open with the President of the United States being played by Donald Pleasance. He is in Air Force One when it's taken over by terrorists. And so he has to get in the escape pod and jettison from the plane. But he lands in New York City, which at some point in the past was turned into one gigantic walled-off prison, where basically all of the criminal element of America is put in what was once Manhattan Island, and they are just left to their own devices. And now the president is stuck in there. And within 24 hours, he needs to give a speech to the rest of the world that could bring world peace. And so the warden in charge of the prison, as well as the guy who's I guess in charge of presidential security, they kind of are having to work together. And so they recruit Kurt Russell playing your typical gruff bad butt character, Snake Plissken. They say, you have military experience, so we want you to go and rescue the president within 24 hours. And this kind of predates the Suicide Squad, and I think it even predates the Suicide Squad of the comics, where they'll put a bomb in your head and they blow you up if you try to disobey government orders. They do the same thing with Snake Plissken. They put a bomb in his bloodstream, and if he doesn't get the president back in the allotted time frame, then the bomb will blow up. And then it's a fun post-apocalyptic heist movie. I don't know how many times I've seen this movie. Maybe 15. I know I probably made it seem like I watch it a lot more than that, but before I started my Christmas tradition of watching this every Christmas Eve, I probably had only seen it maybe 3 times before that. But I like this movie a lot. I'm very curious what you think of it, Connor, because in the past, whenever I introduce a movie that I cherish very deeply to someone else, usually they don't cherish it as much as I do. So I am curious what you think of Escape from New York.
Well, I wanted to quickly, just before we even talk about the movie, I wanted to say that you had said the first thing we see is the president doing something, and I was going to disagree with you there, because the first thing we are introduced to at this movie is one of the best pieces of movie music I've ever heard in my life. I'm just going to not bury the lead on this one. The music in this movie rules. I want this soundtrack on vinyl or on CD or something. I need to listen to this regularly. Mm-hmm. You know how in Halloween, Laurie's theme and the main theme are played constantly? Mm-hmm. And for me, anyways, halfway through that movie, they are played so often, and those pieces of music are so repetitive that I kind of want to rip my hair out, take the disc out of the player, and just smash the disc because it just annoys the living out of me. And this, though, I'm kind of bummed that the opening and closing credits music is the only time you hear that music, because I could listen to that all day and night and I would still be nodding my head and feel awesome, basically. Mm-hmm. Anyways, the rest of the music in the movie is also really, really cool as well. Anyways, music aside, I like this movie. I think I right now I don't like it as much as you do, but this is one of those movies that is one of those it's weird to even call it a cult classic, but I think that probably still describes it. This doesn't have the same great film reputation that something like Halloween or The Thing has, but I do think that it does have its devotees. It is well remembered. It is widely regarded as at least A or B tier John Carpenter. And it's got a great premise, right? This is like one of those premises where even if you've not seen the movie, you know what the premise of the movie is. You know what Snake Plissken looks like. This is one of Kurt Russell's most iconic roles. If you've ever played the game Batman Arkham City, the setup is basically just Escape from New York, but Batmanified. So kind of going into this, I was a little curious to know how I would respond to this, because in your head you have an idea of what a movie is sort of based on how people respond to it. I didn't know, I've not seen The Warriors, so I didn't know if this was going to be like The Warriors or if this is going to be like something else. Like, I don't know, like, because when it comes to something like Halloween, that is one of those movies where I felt like I had already seen that movie before I'd actually seen it, and so actually watching it was just kind of a formality to just say I'd seen it. And even to this day, even though I've already seen Halloween, that movie is really, really boring to me, because I don't really think it's a movie about anything. And then you have this movie, which is directed by the same person, written by the same person, produced by the same person, cinematography by the same person, with Halloween. But I thought this movie was a lot better than Halloween. So I like this movie considerably. I want to talk about it more, but a lot of kind of what this experience was just kind of discovering what it was. And I think my appreciation for this will come on rewatches and kind of seeing more of what's going on in the story at hand, as opposed to just kind of being curious as to what this story even is, which is what the first viewing kind of was. So I'm excited to talk about it. But those are my initial thoughts.
Okay. I guess, do we want to talk about Harry Dean Stanton? Hey, he's our Twin Peaks connection. A lot of times it'll be towards the end of the podcast before we get to talking about our Twin Peaks connection, but this might have been the first thing that I ever saw with Harry Dean Stanton. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I saw before I watched this with him in it, but I like him in this. He plays a nerdy guy, but he's still like part of this criminal underworld. And like, I don't watch a lot of like heist movies, like the Ocean's movies or anything like that. And in those movies, you will traditionally have like, you know, the brain of the team who like it's their job to crack security or whatever. And a lot of times they just don't really feel like they belong in the criminal element. It feels like they should be like, you know, at Harvard teaching a class and drinking whole milk or something like that. Like, you know, it doesn't feel like they really like, what are you doing here? What choices did you make to get you here? But I feel like Brain, even though he's different enough from the other more wild cards in this movie, you don't feel like he doesn't belong in this crowd, if that makes sense.
Yes. I think it's interesting that you call this a heist movie, because that actually wasn't in my head what I was thinking about what to categorize this movie as, but you are absolutely right. That is what this is. I'm thinking that the last heist movie I saw, or at least the most recent heist film that I've seen, is Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead. And that also has a brain kind of criminal, and he's just this like wacky, nerdy, like kind of twerpy guy. And he is so unbelievable. And I don't mean like the performance is unbelievably good. No, the character is not believable in the context of that movie to me. And which is weird, because that character got his very own spin-off prequel film. But anyway, that's beside the point. But you are right. So Harry Dean Stanton, for anyone listening, for me anyways, he's like the GOAT character actor. I love me Michael Stuhlbarg. I like Brian Tyree Henry. I like, you know, all of these great character actors. Richard Jenkins is great. I like all of these character actors who are working today, people who have worked in the past. But Harry Dean, for me, is like peak character actor. He's always great at just showing up and doing his thing. He has a very unique way of reading lines. He has a very great face for screen. I think he's kind of a strange looking fellow if you just kind of saw him out in the wild, or either strange or very, very normal, depending on and like you can't really tell what it is, if it's so normal it's strange, or it's so strange it's normal. Maybe that's a really pretentious way of saying it, but he has a great face. And I guess like in the context of a Hollywood film, he looks odd, but he looks great on screen. And I don't know, just everything about him, his voice, his face, the way he carries himself, his delivery, all of it's so cool. And I can see why, because I remember when he died, I actually heard that he had died, you know, from you over the air of this podcast. I think that was during our Avalanche review, actually.
Okay.
It's been a minute. But I remember when he died, a lot of people were saying, oh, he's an actor you might have remembered from Escape from New York, Alien, and, of course, a bajillion others, but those are his most notable ones. And I thought Escape from New York was the Kurt Russell show, but I didn't realize that, I didn't expect to see Escape from New York listed alongside things like Alien when he had passed as like his most, notable acting performances. But I see it, like I get it. He's memorable in this, and this is very much a movie where the characters are very archetypal. This is a no nonsense, very structured, efficient film. I absolutely understand why you love this movie, Comics Kid. But what's cool about the characters is that it relies on the actors cast in those roles to bring them to life. And it's one of those things where the script and the director, the same guy, it's John Carpenter, but he trusts his actors to bring the world to life, and he casts the right people. And I think Harry Dean Stanton he's just great. And he brings that role to life in a way that is not distracting. It's not like he's trying to steal the scene or steal the show. He is just memorable by being Harry Dean Stanton.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think my favorite line from him is when Brain and Maggie are trying to take the president and get Snake's plane out of New York City. And then one of the gangs is pushing the plane off one of the Twin Towers, and then Brain, he's yelling at them, and then he says, "They're savages, Mr. President." Like, just saying Mr. President, like, to this guy who all he is to you is your ticket out of here. But then he says, like, "I'm so sorry, sir. They're savages." Like the way he does that is just elegant, but very brief line. I loved it. I also like his relationship with Maggie. It doesn't get a lot of screen time, but at the beginning, when Cavi, played by Ernst Borgnine, is bringing Snake to Brain, and then when they meet face to face, you find out, oh, Snake knows Brain from before, and then he says, like, "Hello, Harold," and Maggie says, "Harold." Like, I thought that was great, but the way Ernst Borgnine's character sets this up, it makes it seem like that the Duke only wants to keep Brain happy. So here's a woman for you, Brain. You can have this woman. And she isn't happy about it. She's essentially a slave who's being handed over to keep this guy happy. But then at the end of the movie, Brain dies in the attempt to get out of New York. And then she just seems like stunned into silence. And then instead of getting out of here with Snake and the president, she decides, "I'm going to stay here and I'm going to die taking out the people who took on Brain." And I don't know, like, it's really small. It's like you said, like, there's not a lot on paper that's bringing any of these characters to life. But these actors, like, I don't know if this is true, but I can imagine Adrienne Barbeau saying to John Carpenter, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if Maggie died taking on the Duke, like, to stall him just for a little bit?" Like, I could see somebody coming up with little bits and pieces for these characters. Like, I don't know if this is true, but I imagine Ernst Borgnine saying, like, "I think Cabby would listen to this kind of music." And it's stuff like that, even though, like you said, this is very close to being an auteur's film where John Carpenter is doing just about everything, the key grip, the lights, everything. But everyone else who is involved is contributing something. And I think I like that a lot.
And that is what's cool about it, right? Like, that's what I think a lot of people love John Carpenter. And I think the appeal of it is that it does kind of feel like the sort of movies when you're like a teenager and everyone wants to make a movie, and then most people don't grow up to make movies, but his kind of movies feel like what you expected you would make when you were younger, right? Mm-hmm. There are these high concept, really fun things that take themselves very seriously. But they also have this sort of vibe where it almost feels like a bunch of friends just making a movie together. And for whatever reason, these ones got to go to movie theaters, right? Like, that's what's kind of cool about him. Because he has a lot of the same actors who will show up. Tom Atkins is in a lot of his movies and movies he produced. Deborah Hill produces a lot of his movies. He writes and directs and does the music. But Kurt Russell and Harry Dean Stanton, like, you know what I mean? Like, they show up in a lot of his movies. And there's a lot of, like, cross-pollination that sort of make it feel sort of like a family affair.
Yeah. Tom Atkins is in this movie. He is If I'm not mistaken, he is the guy. He's one of the first human beings we see. He has like this gigantic, like phone book sized cell phone that he's talking on, and then he walks in and tells what's his name, Hawk, Lee Van Cleef. He tells him like, hey, we got a situation. So shockingly, Tom Atkins is not betting a woman half his age in this movie. You haven't seen The Fog, have you?
I'm aware that
okay.
He's getting it on with Jamie Lee Curtis in that movie.
It's like his he meets Jamie Lee Curtis like, hey, do you need a ride? Yeah, sure. And then like 10 seconds later, they it cuts to them in bed. I was like, whoa, even for Tom Atkins, this is fast work.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but if you got a mustache like Tom Atkins, it's like cheat codes basically. So
yeah.
See, that was sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say there's probably a deleted scene of him doing it with somebody off on the side, and they're like, no, we gotta cut this. We gotta make room for the eye patch guy.
There's a flashback scene of Adrienne Barbeau saying, "Tom Atkins, put me in here," and it flashes back, and Tom Atkins was betting her, and then was like, "I know you're a criminal. You're going into New York City."
Yeah.
But that was the thing. So I knew that triggered something that I wanted to mention. So before I watched this, I knew Kurt Russell's in this movie, right? I knew that Harry Dean Stanton was in this, and I knew Donald Pleasance was in this. I did not know that friggin' Lee Van Cleef was in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Lee Van Cleef, Ernest Borgnine is in this. I had no idea he was here. Adrienne Barbeau. I did not know Tom Atkins. Like, there's like 4 people where they showed up, and I just sort of my eyes lit up. I guess, well, I should say their names appeared on the opening credits, and my eyes lit up. I was like, whoa, we're in for a ride. Lee Van Cleef is awesome, and he also looks just like John Carpenter in this movie.
Oh yeah.
I thought that's kind of funny. I always like it when directors cast people or make the villains in their movies look like them. I don't know if you ever saw The Adventures of Tintin, but the Daniel Craig character is the villain, and he's made to look exactly like Steven Spielberg. I thought that was kind of funny.
That's great. I never really put that together, that because John Carpenter, a lot of times when I see pictures of him, it's from like the 21st century, and he's got like long hair like down to his shoulders, and like here, Hawk, Lee Van Cleef's character, he's kind of got the shorter crop hair. But yeah, I can kind of see like 80s, especially early 80s John Carpenter in there. And I'm assuming he cast Lee Van Cleef because he was in one or more of the Clint Eastwood dollars movies, For a Few Dollars More, Fistful of Dollars, and he was in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
And that's something I did want to mention. Yeah, Lee Van Cleef is in 2 of the 3 Man with No Names films. He's in For a Few Dollars More and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Mm-hmm. And it's, I think, well known at this point that John Carpenter got into movie making because he wanted to make Westerns, and he never really got the chance to do that. He primarily made horror films and B movies, which I think this probably falls under the B movie category, at least in premise and style. And so he never really got to make the Westerns he wanted to make, but he did get to cast people who were in Westerns. And I think that's probably like why Lee Van Cleef is here. And Ernest Borgnine, the same year that Good, the Bad, and the Ugly came to America, Ernest Borgnine was in a movie called The Wild Bunch, which is probably the most violent Western of its time. And I've seen that, and I actually watched a lot of Westerns earlier this year, and so I became very well acquainted with Ernest Borgnine and Lee Van Cleef as Western icons. So I feel like I had the perfect prep for when those characters showed up.
Yeah, I did not know that Ernest Borgnine had a history. Ernest Borgnine, sorry, I keep calling him Ernst. I didn't know he had been in Westerns. The only other thing I believe, well, he was the voice of Mermaid Man in a SpongeBob cartoon.
I love him as Mermaid Man.
But I always loved the Mermaid Man Barnacle Boy episodes. But the first thing I think I saw Ernest Borgnine in was a movie called Merlin's Mystical Shop of Wonders. That it was the last, for a very long time, it was the last, or one of the last Mystery Science Theater 3000 episodes. I think it was like the last one that actually aired, but it was not the series finale. And so maybe not the highlight of his career, but for a long time, that was one of the things I knew him from. But I kind of like, even now, like, I still don't know if I've seen a whole lot of stuff. Oh, he was still doing stuff like fairly recently. Like, he was in Red. Like that came out when I was in college. Like the retired Extremely Dangerous, with Helen Mirren in that crew. Like I didn't realize he was still doing stuff. Like even shortly before he died. That's kind of cool. But yeah, to your point about westerns, I do really wish that he could have made a western like in the 80s, because have you seen the Adventures, or not, the Big Trouble in Little China?
I have not.
Okay, I won't spoil it, but at one point that was intended to be a western, and then it kind of evolved away from that. Like the premise kind of, I guess, remained the same, but it just became set in contemporary California. But like that, at one time, like you said, he was wanting to make a western, and this movie, in a way, like Kurt Russell's character very much feels like a Clint Eastwood type character, like the man with no name who just comes into town and deals with the problem. He's not your white hat who's clean shaven and he's tipping his hat to the school marm and saying how do you do, and he's got a horse named Bud. He's not your golden hearted hero, but he is a type of hero, slightly more on the morally gray side, and very much like you don't even have to have watched any of the Clint Eastwood westerns to be familiar with this archetype. And it's like you said, like these are all archetypes, and Kurt Russell does feel like, I feel like he feels like he was made for this. Of course, Kurt Russell was a child actor, did a lot of Disney stuff in the 70s, and I don't know if you and I have had this discussion. I have told my dad this. I said there are two types of child actors. There are the child actors who you would say, like for example, Corey Feldman, if he won the lottery and he had the best role of his life in some movie tomorrow, Academy Award winning role, people would still say introducing child actor Corey Feldman. Like he is known for his child roles and he hasn't really been able to get past that. And then you have someone like Christian Bale, who was doing I recently bought a copy of Kenneth Branagh's Henry V, and Christian Bale is 14 in that movie. Like he's super young. And most people probably aren't aware that Christian Bale was doing stuff when he was a kid. Most people probably aren't aware that Kurt Russell was doing stuff when he was a kid. He was able to find these roles that are distinctly different than what he had done and kind of carve a path out for himself so that he wasn't known as child actor Kurt Russell.
Yes. And when it comes to the role of Snake Plissken, you are right. He's very much doing a Clint Eastwood drifting man with no name who's a bit of a scoundrel. And I like this role and this archetype because to me it feels very post Clint Eastwood making westerns kind of Clint Eastwood role that Kurt Russell's tapping into. I guess I should say another western connection is the villain of this movie is called the Duke. Mm-hmm. And legendary screen icon and western man John Wayne, that was his nickname in Hollywood was the Duke. So I don't know if that's a reference to that. Just with all the other western connections, I'm guessing that's what that might be a reference to. But famously, when Clint Eastwood started making movies, he was very much doing this sort of typical. He was definitely going against his screen persona, because when you watch the Man with No Name trilogy, he is he's a good guy. He's soft spoken, strong and silent type, but he might be a little reluctant, but you can always trust him to do the right thing. And then Clint Eastwood started making westerns, and he played some. It's basically a man with no name, but the man with no name is awful. Like he's basically a villain, but he's the hero of the movie, not because he's the movie tries to make him cool. It's because everyone around him is even worse than he is. And it's almost like this satirical, really kind of vicious, mean movie. It's really cool. I like it, but it's really, playing against type for Clint Eastwood, where he's basically a bad guy, but because he's useful for the people who want to hire him, he's now the good guy. But then he's also aware of how corrupt the people hiring him are, so he's trying to expose them in pretty clever ways. And this role for Snake Plissken feels like a Clint Eastwood character in a Clint Eastwood directed Western, right? Like something like his character from Unforgiven's past, or like the High Plains Drifter, or someone like that, where by the time you get to the end, Snake Plissken is like kind of has this fatalistic, nihilistic, nothing matters, kind of burn it all down type mentality. And the only reason he is going through with what he's doing is because it's potentially useful for him, right? Like you think he's got it. Like I think he might somewhere deep down have a heart of gold buried, but I like the ending of this movie a lot because you think he's got a heart of gold, but he doesn't by the time you get to the very end. And or like he's definitely not showing it at all in this movie.
And not to show too much of my real face, but like you can't blame him for being as fatalistic as he is.
Oh, absolutely.
Because like, you know, so Hawk, Lee Van Cleef's character, asks him, will you help us rescue the president? And Snake initially says yes, because it will mean he will, you know, he gets a pardon for whatever crime that he committed. Apparently, I heard this years ago, there was a scripted scene that they either filmed and deleted or they'd never filmed that showed Snake Plissken robbing a bank with like these tall robot guards. And I am so glad they didn't put that in the movie. I think this works so much better as a air quotes sci-fi movie that does not have any sci-fi in it. I don't know. I called it a heist movie earlier, but it came out in '81, but it's set in the far future of 1997. And so like it's not a like. It's not, I wouldn't call it a sci-fi movie, but I don't know what to call it other than like, you know, high octane heist movie. But I'm really glad they didn't have like the robot security guards for a bank. I think just getting to meet Snake in that office where he's like, you know, the president of what? Like just in very, very short, terse dialogue, you find out, oh, Snake doesn't really care if something happens to the president. But like you said, he decides to take on this mission because he won't have to go to prison if he's able to pull it off. And then it becomes, oh, I have to do this to save my own life because he didn't agree to them putting a bomb in his neck. And in fact, you look at that scene where the guy puts it in him and then he turns around to Lee Van Cleef and says, tell him. And so, like, I don't think Lee Van Cleef would have told him. I think probably Lee Van Cleef would have waited until Snake was about to crawl over the wall. And he would have said, oh, by the way, Snake. Like, so, you know, everyone in this movie is horrible, right? Like, except for maybe Cabby. I have this headcanon that Cabby isn't actually a criminal because he said that he's been driving cabs for like 40 years. And that, like, whatever time he says, it is much longer than the amount of time that they said that New York has been walled off and turned into a prison. So I get the feeling in my mind that Cabby was one of the people they said, you have to get out of here. We're turning this place into a prison. And he said, screw you. This is my home. It's always been my home. I'm going to stay here. And so Cabby just decides he's going to keep driving a cab and he's just going to have to learn how to make Molotov cocktails to keep off the people who want to steal his gas. So like, I have this headcanon that Cabby's not actually a criminal and that he just said, I was born here, I'm going to die here. But like everyone else is like trying to stab each other in the back and like they're awful and they just want to use the president to get out. And then like at the end of the movie, Snake asks the president, well, you know, what do you think about Cabby and Brain and Maggie all dying? And basically it's like, oh, I don't care. And so then Snake is like, okay, cool. And then he walks off with the tape that has the president's speech on it that could have potentially brought world peace. And Snake is like, fine, you don't get this. Like, you clearly don't care about the cost that this had. So you don't get to, you haven't earned it. And so you're right. Snake is like a black-hearted buccaneer, but also like he is that way because everyone else in this movie is too. And if he ever, like if this movie was like an hour longer, we probably would have gotten a lot of short little scenes where he's growing closer with the cast of the movie. Have you ever seen Cowboys and Aliens?
I did in theaters over 10 years ago now, and I don't remember anything about it, honestly.
Okay, there is a short scene in that where you've got a whole lot of people from the town. They were kidnapped by the aliens, and so then everybody else in town is going to go and rescue these people. And a lot of them, like Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford, they don't get along with each other. And at one point, Harrison Ford is showing this kid how to use a knife, and this kid isn't related to him in any way, but he's just showing him like, this is how you do this and do that. And I get the feeling you probably would have had little scenes like that if this movie was longer, where like Snake would show Maggie, like, have you ever it kind of like that scene in Aliens where what's his name is showing Ripley how to shoot a gun. Like, you would have gotten something like that, and then you would have gotten like, Snake reminiscing about some kind of music with Cabby, and then you would watch them all die, and Snake would just feel that much more hollow because these people that he's formed a little bit of a connection with, they're all dead. But like you said, this movie is very efficient, and so it doesn't have time for any of that. And I think the movie still works fine that way. I don't necessarily need to see him developing human relationships with them. I think that would have slowed it down. I think when I said this is a high octane movie, I think that was probably plastered on the inside of everyone's eyelids. Like, we do not have time for character building. We just have to go, go, go. And so I think the closest bit of like character building is like when Brain dies and Maggie is just staring at his corpse and Snake is trying to tell her we have to go. Like, that's all you need, I think. But I've been talking a while. Do you have anything about that to add?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You're right, because I can imagine the James Cameron version of this movie that's a little more hopeful, that does sort of have those character building moments. And I think that the way it exists, it feels like such a John Carpenter movie. And that's what I like a lot about it. It's because, it's one of those things where, Snake is he doesn't care about anything. And I think a lot of that is the image he's trying to project. He has a bit of a legend about him. A lot of people have heard of him. He's a war hero, but people thought he was dead. That's kind of this thing that comes back. So, but when you meet him, he sort of has this I don't care about nothing and nobody sort of attitude. But then you watch him go on this, like, for lack of a better word, adventure, right? Or I guess he goes on this big misadventure where he does meet people that he has known before in the form of Brain, somebody who has betrayed him in the past, betrays him in the middle of this movie, and he is sort of reliant on, but he still has these experiences with these characters, and they do try to achieve a goal. And even though, even through the end, they accomplish it, you think there's the opportunity for him to sort of be changed by it. And I think what stops him from changing is that the world doesn't change because he tried to help change the world. Because he helped save the president, and all the president gives him is like an empty platitude. Mm-hmm. It's just this, oh yeah, the country, thanks them for their sacrifice. And I think that was the point in which he could have potentially given the president the tape to give world peace.
Yeah.
And because the president doesn't do that, it's like the big guy don't care about the little guy. And this sort of, so maybe all this like world peace stuff isn't really world peace. It's just sort of in and of itself a big platitude that's not really going to affect anybody except it'll just be some kind of image, some kind of projection. And I don't know, like, it's a very, I think, provocative ending. And, so when, what's his name? The president puts the tape in that'll have the speech to give world peace. It's just Cabby's music. And then it cuts to Snake, and he just tears the tape out of the real tape. And it's great. I know you watched the movie. So for anybody who might be listening that hasn't watched the movie and doesn't care about spoilers, that's the context for the ending that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And when we talked about Halloween 3, we talked about the not fatalistic, that may not be the right word, but the downer ending of that movie. And I think if John Carpenter tried to, because each writer has their own voice, right, and their own style, and if you as a writer try to go for an ending that doesn't feel natural to you, your audience is probably going to pick up on that. If John Carpenter tried to, like, okay, Mr. President, I want to shake your hand. Here's the tape. Yay, we did it. And then, like, they all, like, jump in the air and it, like, freeze frame, and then it starts playing, like, Don't You Forget About Me by Simple Minds. like everyone would be like, are you kidding me with this? Like, you can't build up to that ending with this movie. And so, like, Carpenter.
Snake's walking away, pumps his fist in the air, and it freeze frames.
Yeah, exactly. But this, Halloween 3 ends with potentially thousands of people are going to get their heads turned into snakes and bugs by these Halloween masks. This movie, I mean, things don't get worse, but they definitely cannot get better. That like we're told that they could have gotten better, and they can't. And then The Thing. Have you seen The Thing?
I have.
Okay. Anyone? Spoilers just for every John Carpenter movie, but in The Thing, everyone dies. Have you seen They Live?
I have not, but I do know the ending of that one.
Okay. So like, John Carpenter, he's known for his like, wow, this is really kind of like, I feel like garbage. It's weird because like, I mean, you watch the ending and it's like you don't feel good about the human race, but also you still had a really good time because this is a very like you said, it's a B movie in terms of style and content. And yeah, I kind of enjoy the trashiness of it for in that way, but also like the humanity sucks message. It's not fun, but also it feels very real and natural for John Carpenter.
Yeah, but I think like because I know you and I have in the past disparaged stuff like Batman versus Superman for just being this like slog, right? Mm-hmm. And everything sucks and so some people might be like throwing their hands up in the air and saying how can you like it in this instance? I think what John Carpenter's movies do that something like Batman versus Superman doesn't do is like he acknowledges humanity, and it feels like the honest voice of somebody who is like discouraged or disenfranchised, where they acknowledge the existence of happiness and humanity. They just sort of feel like in a broad sense that has been snuffed out. And they're sort of, and John Carpenter seems to be wanting to examine that where, as far as like, the man and the big guy versus the little guy or whatever, that's kind of the kind of place where he's trying to examine, I guess, power dynamics or, a lack of humanity there because, there does seem to be, even in the midst of this, very efficient, no fat film that we got, there is some humanity amongst these characters. Like Cabby is a sweet guy. He, a little bit of a coward at one point, but he's a sweet guy at his core. And, it's not like Cabby is, made the laughing stock because of his humanity. Like those aspects of the characters are treated sincerely and not sort of treated as this thing that causes them punishment. It all like, the source of their punishment or their success does sort of come from the struggle with power that they have. That I guess that's sort of, if I had to, come up with some kind of analysis out of my butt, that would sort of, I think, be where that comes from.
Yeah. And also with definitely with Superman, and I would say for at least 40 years for Batman, these are characters who are supposed to be fairly lighthearted. And I mean, with Batman starting definitely around like mid 80s is when you started getting like the gruff, like I snap his wrist and I hear it break in 3 places. This is not a garbage heap. This is an operating table. And like, I mean, we all like Frank Miller. Maybe I don't know if it's popular to like Frank Miller now, but I like The Dark Knight Returns. I like Year One, but like those are at the time those were outliers. Batman was seen as a fairly comparatively a fairly lighthearted character. We're getting way off topic. That's okay. And then like those stories came and kind of blew everyone's mind. And then every other Batman story after that was like, we need to be like that. And so it kind of like transformed Batman. And it's like, oh, those stories don't feel as special when every story features Batman like threatening to break wrists and stuff like that. But with Batman and Superman, these are characters people have preconceived notions of. But with Escape from New York, like you go into this movie and it's like, if you know anything about John Carpenter, your preconceived notion should be that this is what you're going to get. And also the character of Snake Plissken didn't exist before this, which is different than, and really anybody who directs a superhero movie is going to be like, they've got their work cut out for them, because even if they are going for more of the portrayal that the character is known for, you're still going to have people who are upset with you because they're not getting the exact version that they have in their head. And so with John Carpenter creating a brand new character out of cloth, he's got, it's a little bit easier for him. But like, I would say like in that regard, like if you watch the Sam Peckinpah movie Straw Dogs, you shouldn't be upset that you're going to be getting a rape revenge movie because like that's the movie that Sam Peckinpah was going to make. But if Sam Peckinpah said, I want to do a Hulk movie, and then he did a rape revenge movie with the Hulk, that would be really weird, and everybody would complain and say, this isn't what I want with the Hulk, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's actually funny you say Sam Peckinpah because he made The Wild Bunch, which I had mentioned earlier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
That's funny. I was curious if that was a reference to that or not. But yeah, actually, I did want to take a quick mention because you were kind of talking about, I don't know, I feel like something in what you just said triggered this thought of, I feel like there is a little bit of a change to Snake. Like he's humanized a little bit, or at least something about this event has humanized him a little bit, because at the beginning he always tells Lee Van Cleef, call me Snake. But then at the end he's like, call me Pliskin, because that is his real last name.
Yeah.
And I imagine Snake, like his parents didn't name him Snake when he was a kid. You know what I mean? So there's something there, right? It's a little change, but there is some change there. I like that.
Well, and I would say it's definitely like someone who might be getting tired of us like singing praises to this movie. They might say like, well, at some point, you know, like because Snake kept saying, call me Snake. And then when he finds out that he has a bomb in his neck, maybe that had something to do with it. But also like at the beginning of the movie, he watches like a group of guys, like they're about it looks like they're about to rape a woman, and Snake just walks on by because he has, like, in his mind he's saying, I have limited time, I have to get the president and get out of here. And that's when he thinks that he can track the president. He has that little electronic tracker, and then once he realizes that just some bum, I think it's if I'm not mistaken, it's the same guy from the Back to the Future movies, Buck Fowler or Buck Flower. I can never remember his last name.
Oh, yeah. The guy, he plays a drunk and everything, right?
Yeah, yes, yeah. He was in the Wishmaster movie, which I watched earlier this year. But like at that point, Snake is like, well, great, like I'm completely screwed. There's no way I can find the president. And then like Hawk tells him, you still have 21 hours. I would suggest that you get moving. But by the end of the movie, like when Brain blows up on the mine. Sorry, not mime. It wasn't a silent person in makeup. The mine on the bridge. Then he tells Maggie, come on, we have to get moving. And so like, it's a small change in him, but you know, at the beginning of the movie, he couldn't care what happened to that woman because he just has to get the president and get out of here. But here, towards the end, you know, he tells her like, let's go, we got to get moving. And so you're right, he has changed a little bit.
Yeah, I think that little bit of humanity kind of amongst all of the kind of everything sucks sort of, you know, maybe broad strokes, there is a little bit of nuance there and a little bit of change that maybe even the characters aren't aware of. And I think that's the Carpenter element, right? That's what's cool about it. I think that's what makes it feel satisfying and not pointless.
Yeah. Were there any elements of this movie that you didn't care for? Because we've been talking pretty positive for a while now, and it will not hurt my feelings if you have some like this didn't work for you as well aspects.
Well, that's the thing, because it's like I feel like what.
No. This is Escape from New York. The Thing is another movie. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it.
No, bravo. 10 out of 10. Another thing about this movie that's a 10 out of 10 is the lens flares in this movie look awesome. I know that's not something you typically notice, but the director of photography of this movie is Dean Cundy, who did Halloween 1, 2, and 3. He would later go on to do Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3 and Jurassic Park. But
I really thought you were going to say the director of photography was J.J. Abrams. I was about to like pass out. I was like, because when you said lens flare, my mind just went to like Star Trek, like lens flare.
Well, that's the thing is because like usually like those lens flares are anamorphic. I'm sorry, I'm going to get into like lenses, so apologies. But like usually those lens flares are like bars of light that shoot horizontally, and anamorphic lens flares look cool and all, but in this one, Dean Cundy shoots a lot of this on like really, really wide lenses. Like that opening shot is almost fisheyed, but it's a really awesome shot, right? Where like the car pulls in and then like the camera goes up the wall and it's that reveal of New York in the distance. But like he keeps those like wide lenses on it throughout, and whenever they pass by like flames or there are street lights or something, the like lens flares are like circles, but they're like ovals, right? They're so cool looking. I don't know, like it was a very visually striking choice that I'm sure I've seen lens flares like that before. They've never stuck out to me like that before. They looked awesome.
Mm-hmm. Um, Real quick on a technical aspect, you mentioned James Cameron earlier. He did some of the matte paintings for this movie.
Really?
Yeah, there's at least one. I want to say it's at the very beginning, when we're panning over New York. I want to say that was done by James Cameron.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like funny because like whenever I look at John Carpenter stuff, like I feel like maybe it's just the same time, and they like playing in the same genre, but I always feel like there's a little bit of Carpenter's DNA is in Cameron. Cameron's obviously like a lot more optimistic and maybe schmaltzy, but I feel like James Cameron is sort of like the missing link between John Carpenter and Steven Spielberg or something.
That makes sense. I would especially thinking about like Terminator. Like Terminator feels the most John Carpenter out of like Terminator 1, I think feels the most Carpenter out of all the stuff from James Cameron I've seen. I think everything else, like even Terminator 2, like you're starting to get more on the Steven Spielberg side of the scale when you get to that side.
And then there's Titanic, which is basically Cameron's Spielberg movie. Which is a movie you don't like. So, hey, go figure. But I also think something like Aliens does sort of have like a little bit of a Carpenter streak in it.
Yeah.
But you're right. The first Terminator movie does feel the most like a Carpenter film. But as far as like stuff that I don't like as much, like that's kind of the weird part of this where I don't really think I have any major problems with this movie. It's just that what I prefer in a movie is not inherently this.
Okay, yeah.
But well, what's that?
No. I understand. Like, there have been times where I watch a movie and it's like I don't have any. I'm exactly where you are right now, where it's like I watch a movie and it's like I don't have any problems with it, but it's not a movie I would necessarily ever watch again.
And I would watch this again, but it's just one of those things where it's not like immediately something that'll come to mind. For example, I recently watched the 1938 Errol Flynn movie, The Adventures of Robin Hood. And that movie rocks my socks, dude. I couldn't stop thinking about that movie for 3 days. And I just finally last night, or the night before last, I was going to be watching the original Nightmare Alley with my brother Spencer. And I said, hey, can we not watch this tonight and just watch Adventures of Robin Hood? That movie just like, I really, really like that. But something like this is like, I really enjoy it. And I completely understand why a lot of people love this. And like I said earlier, this first watch, I feel like a lot of it was just sort of discovering it. And I feel like this is one of those, because you know how there's like those movies where you wish you could have never seen that movie so you could experience it for the first time all over again.
Yep.
This is not like that. I feel like this is like Blade Runner, where the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, I now know what Blade Runner is. And then upon rewatching that movie countless times, every time I watch it, I grow an appreciation for it, and I love it more and more. And I think this might be in that category, where the more I watch it, the more I appreciate it, the more things I notice, stuff like that.
Yeah. I years ago, this would have been, I mean, maybe even before I started doing my Christmas tradition of watching this, I remember seeing a rumor, and I'm tempting the Hollywood gods right now. I hope this doesn't like they don't hear this and it's like dig this out of the archives. But there was a guy, I don't remember who it was, who was going to do an Escape from New York prequel trilogy, and I was so like, no, please don't do that, no. But like, there's a line in this movie when Snake finds out that Brain is his old buddy Harold. And he says, you, me, and Fresno Bob. And I was just thinking like, oh no, they're going to make an entire movie out of Fresno Bob and Snake. And like, I was just like almost nauseous, like, please don't do this. And then like, fortunately, it was one of those things that never happened. Yeah, that's one of those things that like now that we're talking about this, I'm thinking about that and I'm like, oh no, what if some Hollywood executive gets an idea in their head like right now and they're like, hey, you guys remember Escape from New York? So yeah, that's really I guess people talk about like movies that get remade a lot. Like we live in a day and age where like nostalgia is the currency, and like if it's not a sequel, it's a reboot or a relaunch or whatever. Even though Escape from New York did get a not great sequel, I'm glad that this is more or less able to stay forgotten, if that's the right word. Like, I'm glad that we're not getting like the Escape from Cincinnati movie or whatever that shows how he lost his eye. Like, I'm really glad we're not getting that.
Escape from St. Louis.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just thinking of I would say Escape from Miami, but most people want to escape Florida.
Mm-hmm.
But you were kind of talking about that, and I was thinking, well, yeah, because I mean, I would say, why would they ever do a nostalgia bait sequel to Escape from New York when they already did one and it kind of failed hard? But then I remembered, oh, that's right, Ghostbusters, right? Like, doesn't matter how many times you crap the bed on that, they'll just keep making a new one. And it'll just be worse every time because Ghostbusters Afterlife is the worst movie of the year. Sorry, I had to sneak that one in there. But I will say, to maybe quell your, not even, sorry, to increase your fears, maybe just a smidge. It was announced this last week that Escape from LA is getting a 4K release.
Oh, okay. I was just on the edge of my seat. Like, am I going to have to go to the hospital right now in the middle of this podcast?
I'm just saying they might be testing the waters to see if the market's available. That's what I'm saying. Like,
why would they make a 4K of Escape from LA?
I have no idea. It's so weird.
That's a movie for anyone who's curious. So I've been watching Escape from New York since I was maybe since I was in high school. Like, that might have been the first time I saw it, maybe, because this is a rated R movie, but it's a soft R. I don't think it's like a super graphic R, but I've been, aware of this movie since I was in high school, at least. But I never watched Escape from LA until 2020. I watched on December 23rd. I watched Captain Ron with Martin Short and Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell plays I guess like I don't know how to describe him. He's a boat captain that's hired to take Martin Short's family around in this boat. You're a big fan of What About Bob? It's very similar in vibe to What About Bob, where Martin Short is like kind of just getting relentlessly frustrated with Captain Ron in the same way that Richard Dreyfuss is getting relentlessly frustrated with Bill Murray. Like, if you're a fan of What About Bob, you might be interested in Captain Ron. The only reason I watched Captain Ron was because he has an eye patch in that movie, and I have this idea that Captain Ron was just this like incompetent goofball, and then like he got in over his head one day, and then he ended up flying the Leningrad, and then he like just loses everyone close to him, and he changes his name, and then you get the events of Escape from New York. And then so anyway, long story short, I watched what I consider to be the prequel to this. I watched Captain Ron, then I watched on December 24th Escape from New York, and then on Christmas Day I watched Escape from LA. And I wouldn't ever have to repeat that experience again. I think Captain Ron, it's fine, but I'm not going to watch it as a double feature with Escape from New York again. I still like Escape from New York a lot, and I really do not like Escape from LA.
Yeah, I hear Escape from LA is just the worst, and it should be said, this isn't like Kino Lorber or Shout Factory putting out Escape from LA. This is like actual Paramount Home Media putting out Escape from LA on 4K. So like that's surprising to me. I'm just worried that if for whatever reason that one 4K disc sells really, really well, they say, well, we got it. Let's make Escape from Seattle or something like that. You know what I mean? I don't know.
It's going to be Kurt Russell's son is going to be the new Snake Plissken.
Oh God, that's
I know it. Yeah. So
I should be said, I love Wyatt Russell. I think he's a great actor. That hurt. The possibility of that, it seems too plausible, and it hurts me.
Mm-hmm. I did want to point out one other thing that I don't know if this is intentional, but it seems too weird to not be intentional. In this movie, there are two characters. The weird guy who first greets the soldiers when they first come in, and he says, if you come any closer, he dies. If you touch me, he dies. Like that guy, who I guess he's like the Duke's right-hand man. His character name, I don't know if it's ever said in the movie, but his character name is listed as Romero. Okay, that's fine. But then the doctor who puts the bombs in Snake's neck, his character name is Cronenberg. Now, one, does not a pattern make, but two, that just seems too unlikely. I feel like David Cronenberg and George Romero were making movies in 81, right?
Yes. Yeah, they were.
Okay. I feel like maybe John Carpenter was like, I'm going to name this weirdo after George Romero, and I'm going to name this like really dull guy who's just in the movie for like 2 seconds after David Cronenberg. Like, that seems like what's going on here, but I don't know. Maybe that's just a pure coincidence.
No, I can't guarantee you because I don't know the man myself, but I can as close to guarantee as possible you that is exactly what's happening. I'm pretty sure he named him Romero largely maybe because Romero was an influence. And I actually get Cronenberg and Carpenter mixed up quite often because I'm relatively unfamiliar with both of their bodies of work. And in my head, they were both making similar type of movies around the same time. Like The Thing and The Fly are like two movies that kind of get mixed up in my head. But yeah, no, Cronenberg has a very similar kind of ethos to his movies. Is that the right word? I don't know. Like they have a very similar kind of the man is out to get you, kind of gritty vibe to both like Carpenter and Cronenberg do anyways. I watched the movie Videodrome and it felt like it's a lot hornier and a lot more uncomfortable than a John Carpenter movie, but it looks and feels very similar.
Okay. I've only seen The Fly, and I only saw it once, and that was enough for me. It's a great movie, visually it's stunning, but that movie was the only movie I can think of that actually made me physically feel ill. I was just like, I think I might throw up watching this. Like it's not anything about like the script or anything. It's just like the actual disgusting idea of like this man is turning into a fly. Like I was like nauseous watching the movie, and so like it's a really good movie, very well made. I will never watch it again. So that's
fascinating because like I know that Rasco, our buddy like Rasco, he loves that movie, but he also was like he's fascinated by it because like my mom and dad like The Fly, and I've never seen it, and Brasco was telling me like it's actually like a really gross body horror movie. Like it's one of the grossest movies ever, but it's also like the kind of movie you would expect like a couple to watch on Valentine's Day because apparently it's also got a very sweet romance at it. And so it's like it's actually very commercial in that sense, but it's also really not commercial in how gross the horror angle is. So I don't know. I'm very curious now. Like you saying it made you nauseous is actually like, well, shoot, no movie's ever made me nauseous. Maybe it'll make me nauseous. Now I kind of want to watch it.
Yeah, and you might thoroughly have a good time. I also we talked about Halloween 3, which the first time I saw Halloween 3 was just back this past Halloween. But I feel like I don't remember if I said this when we talked about that movie, but I feel like some of the music in Halloween 3 very much reminded me of some of the music in this. I haven't gone back and rewatched Halloween 3 since we talked about it, but I think there was a scene at the very beginning when the woman's dad is getting chased, it just that music kind of sounded like the theme music from Escape from New York to me.
Yeah, because this has like that, bum bum ba bum ba da dum, but it has that. But then there's also like this beep 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 beep, beep that kind of kicks in a little bit somewhere in that melody. But then like the entirety of the like main theme from Halloween 3 is like that beep 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 kind of sound. So
yeah. So I didn't have a whole lot else to say about this. I of course I don't know if you remember this, Connor, but years ago when we were both on Who Reviews the Reviewers, my entry, I guess, my tryout video for that was a 2-minute review of this movie. And so anybody who wants to do a little digging in YouTube, I'm too embarrassed to go back and watch that and see if that video holds up. But I feel like I've kind of said my piece on this movie over the years, but did you have any final thoughts on this?
Yeah, before I do, I wanted to say I'm glad I was able to talk to you about it. I don't know. I feel like it's I don't know. This isn't like the last podcast we're ever going to record, but it adds some symmetry. I feel like I don't know. It feels good because this is actually a movie I maybe always wanted to talk to you about. I mean, I certainly have always wanted to watch it, but the idea of talking to you about it has always sort of maybe motivated me to want to watch it, I guess. So yeah, I'm glad we were able to finally do this. Yeah, I think that it's obviously like there's like a budgetary thing, but I was a little, I guess, disappointed is the wrong word. I guess maybe a little surprised that there wasn't like more gangs. There wasn't more like I haven't seen the Warriors, but apparently like the Warriors like goes all in on like the crazy different gangs all at war with one another kind of thing.
Mhm.
I was maybe expecting that, where in this movie, like it is, you have the Duke and his posse, and because he's kind of the head honcho, it's like you get like those kind of crazy people that chase him through that one building, and that's a really cool scene.
Mhm.
But I was like, oh, I kind of maybe expected more of like different factions, and Snake Plissken maybe fistful of dollars style has to like maybe instigate two people that don't like each other to like go to war with one another, so he could try to, like, you know what I mean? Like there's like a lot of, it's a fantastic premise, and I thought like, oh, there's so many different things you can do. And then when it kind of was revealed that this was the story they were telling with it, I was initially like, oh, that's it. And that's not a problem, mind you. That's just sort of like well, yeah, like they clearly don't have a budget for like, this isn't like a Star Wars movie, right? This is a lower budget thing, and they came up with a solid story for the premise and for the budget, right? And so they did what the best they could. And I guess that's sort of one of those things where I say, like, upon revisits, I might appreciate this a lot more for what they're doing. But as is, I was a little surprised that the world wasn't as big as I maybe thought it might be.
Yeah, and maybe that's we talked about how like if this movie was longer, you'd get more character stuff. If it was longer, they certainly probably would have had like another faction in New York that's been like it's kind of been a cold war between the Duke and this other guy. But now that the president's here, this other guy's willing to risk all-out war to get the president so that he can get the upper hand, because he doesn't want to be left behind when the Duke marches out and stuff like that. And so like. Yeah, they probably would have done something like that. I haven't seen the remake to RoboCop, but I'm almost thinking if they were to do a remake of Escape from New York with Wyatt Russell right now, that they would probably make it be significantly different, but also it would be like, you know how like when we talked about the original RoboCop and I said I was expecting there to be more of him like trying to reunite with his family, and you said a lot of that was in the remake. And from what I have heard, people who are big fans of the original RoboCop have said they were just they thought the remake was just fine. It wasn't an especially fantastic movie. They thought it was just fine. And I'm thinking if they were to do a remake of Escape from New York, they might even be wise enough to say we don't need to do the exact same plot as the previous two Escape from movies, but they would probably add some elements like that, and then somehow I would still come away from it thinking, it was okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, exactly. It's like, because like right now remakes aren't really in anymore like they were 10, 11 years ago. Right now it's all about, how many IPs can you put into one thing, right? That's what Space Jam 2 was, and Ready Player One, Spider-Man, right? That's what it's all about, right? Mm-hmm. But right now the people who are doing remakes are like really talented, well-respected directors remaking movies they like, and those usually turn out all right. I mean, that's nothing new. Like we just said, The Fly is an example of that. The Thing is an example of that. I don't particularly like the Coen Brothers remake of True Grit, but a lot of people do, and that's what that is. And just this month we have Guillermo del Toro remaking a movie. We have Steven Spielberg remaking West Side Story. So I think like if they did remake Escape from New York, it might be an instance of that, where you have like a really cool, like, it's in good hands person maybe trying to do something cool and unique with Escape from New York. So maybe that'll be the case. And John Carpenter will be okay with it because he'll get a big fat check for it.
Yeah. Man, you know what? That's something I did want to add before we tap out on this one. I miss the days when John Carpenter was actually trying, like, in it. I mean, it's nothing new, but like, even like Escape from LA just feels like he was just asleep at the wheel, and then Ghosts of Mars is somehow even worse. I am baffled by Ghosts of Mars. And nowadays, like, he doesn't really direct movies anymore, which is probably a blessing. But like, if he was, like, I feel like it wouldn't even hold a candle to like the golden age of like early '80s Carpenter.
Oh yeah, his last movie was The Ward. And when he was asked, like in his director's commentary for that movie, he's saying, "Yeah, this isn't as good as my other movies because I'm just not as into directing as I used to be." He says he's lost his passion for it, and that's why his movies aren't as good as they used to be. Like he just straight up said it.
Oh, it's kind of sad, but I mean, hey, if you're willing, if you're able to just comfortably live off of royalty checks from They Live and The Thing and Escape from New York, then hey, power to you.
Yeah. And you know what? He's you're right. Luckily, he's not like destroying his name with like it's not like half of his filmography is embarrassing train wrecks. So that's cool. But also like he is just doing what he likes, right? He's touring, he's making music, he's kind of living that life right now. Good for him.
Yeah. So was there anything else you wanted to bring out before we shut this one down?
Yeah, I like how there's a boxing ring in the middle of like is that Grand Central Station or something where and I think that's hilarious, and I like how there's this like completely random like giant sumo wrestler looking guy who shows up, and then the snake kills him by like there's like a spiky bat he has, and he like just lodges it into the back of the dude's head. Like, hey, that was a funny scene. I like that.
Yeah. This I don't know if you ever saw the Rona Mitra movie Doomsday. It's not good.
No, I know you're a fan.
Yeah. Neil Marshall said he first came up with the idea for that movie because he had a dream about a modern day woman fighting a knight in armor. And then he built a movie around that scene, even though like that. I mean, I don't want to get into Doomsday. It basically feels like if somebody took Mad Max and Escape from New York and put them together, but instead of putting chocolate and peanut butter together and getting something incredible, it's like putting chocolate and macaroni and cheese together and getting something like horrible. That to me, like that scene with the gladiator ring, that feels almost like in the early stages of conception that of the movie, that is, that John Carpenter was saying, like, what if he fights somebody in a gladiator ring and then like it works? Like it almost feels like the same thing that Neil Marshall had, except that it actually produces a movie that is watchable in this case.
And likewise, it doesn't feel like the entire movie is built around a gimmick like that, because that is a distraction for Brain and Adrienne Barbeau to go get the president, right?
Yeah,
or at least it's not a distraction, but they're like Adrienne Barbeau and Harry Dean Stanton are using it as a distraction. So that kind of adds drama, right? It adds tension. It's cool. It's how you tell a story. I don't know. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, I like this movie. I will probably continue watching it for many more Christmas Eves. I hope you guys will join me in that tradition. So Connor, for the new year, what are you going to be ringing us out with in terms of this podcast?
Well, I'll tell you what, Comics Kid. I meant to pick this a while back, actually, but you know, with holidays and special picks I've been wanting to do, I haven't had a chance to pick this. I am going to be picking. Well, recently the Daniel Craig era of James Bond came to a close with No Time to Die. And believe it or not, there's a Twin Peaks connection with an earlier James Bond. And that is the ending of the Timothy Dalton era of James Bond, the 1989 film License to Kill. This features Everett McGill as one of the villain's henchmen.
Okay.
It also features Benicio del Toro as one of the villain's henchmen as well.
Okay, yeah. I have seen part of this movie. I think this was back in the days when James Bond didn't go rogue in literally every single movie, and so it was kind of a big deal when he did go rogue in this one.
Every single movie didn't have what is James Bond's place in a world that's digital and the Cold War no longer exists.
Mm-hmm. That guy from Pirates of the Caribbean talking in another with a weird thing on his face and talking in an incomprehensible accent again. I think I'm one of the only people who didn't like Skyfall. Sorry, everybody. So I'm looking forward to this because I think I told you this. I have made a few different attempts to try and just do a big Bondathon, and I usually get right around the end of the Connery era, and then I kind of tap out. And I have like most of the Roger Moores. I know I have all the Daltons. I have all the Brosnans. And just for whatever reason, I never do go and watch those. So I'm glad you are forcing me to watch one of those. And I think I will really enjoy it because what I remember of this one, I remember liking it quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm glad you have access to it because I don't know if it was streaming anywhere. I mean, I figured this one probably is at libraries, but I don't know because I own this one and I'm glad you do. Oh, apparently Robert Duvall is in this movie. That's
Hmm.
really unexpected. Cool. Awesome.
Okay, yeah. So this will probably be our first Bond movie, right? I don't think
That
we've
is
done a.
correct. That is
Okay,
correct.
cool. I know you are probably a bigger Bond fan than I am, if I had to guess, but I am looking forward to this. And this will be a slightly different. I know we have done Everett McGill like with the People Under the Stairs, and have we done anything else with him? He was in Dune, David Lynch's Dune.
Yeah, he's shown up. Oh man, he was in the Straight Story. Yeah, he's popped up here and there.
Everett McGill was in A Straight Story.
He's very early on. He's the guy who sells the tractor to
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Alvin.
I had forgotten that. Yeah. So cool. So then that's what we will be talking about. In the meantime, I am the Comics Kid 2099,
And I'm Connor Nielsen.
and we'll see you guys next year. Have a good one.